Oh, what a week. And I feel like we're all in pain. And if you're a node holder, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're not a node holder, you will also know what I'm talking about, because Discord this week, the whole community has been up in arms from different perspectives about nodes, the model of nodes for Vulcan, and what the heck has been going on. So in this little video, I'm going to give you my take as a node holder, but more importantly, as a community member, about what I'm sure we will call NODEGATE and what it means for the larger picture and for Vulcan, the blockchain. So without further ado, let's go.
Living life every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better.
Welcome, my dear friend, to a very wet and miserable Saturday in the UK. But it's okay, because I have my magical teapot, and today she holds, of course, there is only one tea today. It has to be chamomile, because we all need a little bit of soothing today. So I'm taking one for the team. This is a cup of chamomile for every single one of you. But before we get into the video, I will say, as always, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, so please do your own research. And please do hit that subscription button down below. If you're watching this and you're not subscribed, but you enjoy this content, it would be really appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so what the heck has been going on? Okay, the Ferrari this week has been around the fact that the model of node for Vulcan has changed quite drastically, actually, to be fair. From the original model, whereby node revenue was being based not only on gas transactions on the blockchain, but also a share of the tax that would be collected as part of all of those transactions. So that the tax pool was going to be shared in some way with the node holders. And what it transpired in an AMA with Brian, somebody asked the question about the node model, and in that conversation it happened to come out that actually that node model has now changed, and it is now merely based on, I say merely, but it's now based only on gas transactions, so that the tax share has been taken out of the model. And this, I think, was quite a big surprise, and not a happy surprise to many people within the community, and especially node holders. It also transpires in the midst of all this that node calculator that has been on was on the safuux website for many months, I think maybe 4 or 5 months, was incorrect. So we've kind of got two things going on, and it's resulted in a lot of frustration, stress, and I would say actually bad feeling within the community, especially node holders. But that has then also slightly pitted node holders against non-node holders who are kind of looking on and frustrated themselves, kind of saying, but at least you got a node, we didn't get nodes, and all of this. And really, I'll be honest, this week we are slightly a community in disarray. So here's my take on it. So what do I think about it? I have actually sat this week on the sidelines looking on, slightly bemused by the whole thing. And bemused is the wrong word, actually, because that sounds quite flippant, and I don't mean that, and I'm not trying to devalue any of the emotion that's happened this week, because this is serious stuff. At the center of this is my investment, your investment, the fact that node holders did choose to invest, you know, I think it was 2,700 safuux at the time, when they could have held that back and rebased it and use it in a different way. And I know, you know, many of the node holders have called foul and said, had they known the truth of the model, they probably wouldn't have purchased a node. And I get all of that. my own personal perspective is actually quite different. And again, in this video, I am not trying to take away from any of that. We all have our different perspectives and we all do things based on our own decision-making mechanism. Here's my decision-making mechanism in terms of the node and why I bought it. I did, of course, look at the model. I looked at the calculator, but I didn't really base my decision on the calculator, thankfully. So now it's been highlighted that there's an error with the calculator. I'm kind of like, well, okay, I looked at it, but that wasn't my decision-making mechanism. My decision to buy a node was really based on three things, and I did actually speak about this in 1 or 2 videos in the past. And those three things are as follows. So the first thing, I actually never took the potential node revenue into any of my calculations or decision making, which I know probably sounds ridiculous because it's such a massive part of owning a node. But my decision to buy a node or not was made partly on the fact that, well, the safuux as it was, or the now Vulcan, will be rebasing. And so I'm gonna earn my money back. And actually, the node revenue, I'm just gonna see as an absolute complete bonus. In fact, this is what I said. And then there's also the potential of the income from the gas fees that are part of being a node owner. Now, we know that the gas fees aren't going to come in. They're not going to build for quite some time and they may be very low to begin with. That's fine. So I'm just looking at the rebasing at the moment as the income that I will receive between January and July. And any gas fees that I receive as a node owner, and hopefully there will be some, will just be a bonus. So I'm not counting those. They'll be a nice added bonus. So really, in terms of finances and the financial impact of buying a node, I was making my decision based on the rebases, and I knew that once the launch of mainnet came, I would have already recouped the cost of the node. That, in terms of finances and income, I was I'm going to get my money back straight away. Anything else going forward is a bonus. And you might think, well, that's a weird decision to make, but that decision making was based in tandem with the next 2 points that I'll just go into now. So the second point, and probably actually the most important for me, I was desperate to be part of the infrastructure of the blockchain. To me, this was something really important. Again, this is what I said, and it's the idea that I find really attractive of being a part of the blockchain mechanism. I just think it's something I've never done. I've never had a validator node, and I don't know anybody else that has. But the idea of being part of that blockchain and such an important part of it, I find really attractive. And I think you're also showing your support of the project by, and your faith in the project going forward by purchasing the node. And again, that's something that is important to me personally. So I wanted, my decision to buy a node was based on, I want to be part of the blockchain, I want to be part of the infrastructure, I want to show my support, I want to be there in the midst of it. And that was a really important point to me. And the third part of my decision making was, of course, as everything is for me in terms of this blockchain, was the trust that I had and still have in Brian and the full team. I was listening to their narrative, I was listening to what they were saying, and their aspirations for this blockchain. It's the bigger picture stuff to me as a node holder and the decision to buy a node, and that all played into my decision making. And I know this third point about the trust is a big issue for people now because, and I have listened very carefully to what's been said this week, and I am not discounting any of this because there are so many different perspectives, so many different ways that this can be taken on board, that can be kind of molded in your own mind. Mine is just one perspective, and the reason why I've actually stayed on the sidelines this week, And actually, I actually feel quite content going forward. I don't have an issue, but I am not saying that's the right way to look at it. It's just my perspective. And I fully value and respect other people's views on this, actually, because I can see absolutely why people are very upset about this. Because what they are saying, in effect, is actually, in a way, it's not so much the dollar signs coming out that they're upset about. It's the principles behind how this happened. And with a critical eye looking back on this week, I think I and everybody would agree that mistakes have been made. And I think there are two main mistakes that have been made here. There's been a mistake, and actual mistakes in like the calculator, and also the fact that there was a model put up originally that was discussed about that tax pool feeding the node revenue, and that has now not transpired into the full model. I think there was a mistake there that wasn't picked up. That it was only picked up because a member of the community, TCL, asked in an AMA last week. Otherwise, we would kind of be, we wouldn't know about this maybe until the launch of mainnet, which would have been really terrible. So thankfully it has come to the fore, but I think the mistake for me is actually linked to the second point, which is about communication or miscommunication. And you know what? I think, and I don't know, I have got no idea whether this is true. There is so much going on with the development of this blockchain. And, I'm looking at my experience as a project manager and a change manager that I've done in my past life, at a very high level. And projects that are very intricate with a lot of moving parts. And there are times that things fall through the net. It's not an excuse. But major changes, which in my mind as a project manager, it's like, yeah, that's what we need to do. That's the future. That's the way we need to do it. But then not really taking into account the communication, or the importance of the communication to the community, to the workforce, whatever it is. And I think that's where the ball has slightly been dropped here, if I may say. I think the headlines in the last couple of weeks has always been about that massive change in the APY, down to 44% APR. That was the headline, and amazingly, although there was a bit of a kerfuffle about that, we've kind of come through that. But then, almost from left field came this change from the nodes, but it was like it almost came through as like a stealth thing. There was no massive, announcement about it. And I just wonder if in getting the main headline out, the node model was kind of lost in it all. That it was forgotten that original model was up there because it was so many months ago. And the fact that the tax was included had been forgotten. And with all the developments in the tokenomics changing, going to the Vulcan blockchain, it was lost in the midst of all of that kerfuffle and the shenanigans of changing the tokenomics. I don't actually feel there's been dishonesty here. I don't think there's been a conscious illusion. I think there's been a dropping of a ball. It doesn't make it any better or easier. But for me, I am a very principled person. And if I really felt that somebody was pulling my leg here or, really trying to mislead me, you wouldn't see any more videos from me. I'd be gone. I'd be, at the launch of mainnet, I would be selling everything I possibly could and moving on out, because I hold trust very close to my heart. I honestly, my personal feelings is that's not what's gone on here. I think, again, it doesn't excuse it because there are high level stakes here. Again, my investment, your investment. And, those things need to be carefully managed. And perhaps they haven't been as well managed as they could have been. That's my honest thought. Does that mean that I'm going to condemn Brian and the team? No. Because I can see how these things happen. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. So really, I just want to wrap this up by saying I really hope we can move along. I think some people are still very hurt by this, and I just hope that they can come to terms with what's happened and maybe see the perspective that I put up today. Again, it's not excusing anything, it's just a different perspective of how these things might have happened. So I hope we can all move along, because also the other thing we don't want is this distraction from what the team need to achieve to get us to launch on the 1st of March. And I think it is a distraction that potentially could lead to further delays, because every second, a millisecond spent thinking about this stuff is not allowing us to move forward to the blockchain. So again, I'm not trying to devalue or tell people that they shouldn't feel the way they do, but I do feel it's really, really important that we can draw a line under it and move forward from this point on. So I'm going to leave it there, just my 10 penneth. You can take it or leave it. But I am grateful that you've watched this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. But in the meantime, as I always say, my dear Vulcans, live long in prosperity, and cheers!
Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.